All right, let's dive into a really big idea from one of the most important books ever written about how science actually works. Thomas Kuhn's The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. Today, we're talking about something he called normal science. And trust me, it's probably not what you're picturing.
Okay, do me a favor. Just for a second, close your eyes. When you imagine a scientist, what do you see? You probably see someone in a lab coat, right? Maybe there's some wild hair, bubbling potions, complex formulas scrawled across a giant chalkboard.
And what are they doing in that picture? Are they having a sudden, world-shattering flash of genius? A lightning bolt of inspiration, where they jump up and shout, "Eureka!" and completely change our understanding of the universe? Yeah, that's the classic image, the whole myth of the lone genius having these incredible breakthroughs.
But here's the thing. According to Kuhn, that dramatic picture is almost completely wrong. For most scientists, most of the time, the day-to-day reality is a disciplined, focused, and, well, almost predictable process. He gave it a name, normal science.
So let's break this down, because the difference is huge. On one hand, you have the myth that science is always about revolution, always chasing brand new, shiny theories. But the reality of normal science, it's pretty much the opposite. The goal isn't to discover new theories, but to make the existing ones better. The result isn't some sudden shift, but a slow, steady, piece-by-piece growth of what we know.
Okay, so if scientists aren't constantly trying to blow up old ideas, what is guiding them? What's steering the ship? Well, the whole system really hangs on one powerful idea, the paradigm.
So what is a paradigm? Think of it as the shared rulebook for an entire field of science. It's some massive achievement, like Newton's laws of motion, that was so successful it basically handed the whole scientific community a set of problems to work on and the tools they needed to solve them.
Kuhn had this just brilliant analogy for it. Say you're learning Latin grammar, and you learn to conjugate a verb, like amas, amat. You're not just memorizing those specific words, you're learning the pattern. And once you have that pattern, you can apply it to tons of other verbs. A scientific paradigm works exactly the same way. It gives scientists the pattern for solving new problems.
And this leads us to a quote from Kuhn that is, honestly, it's pretty mind-bending when you first hear it. He says the whole point of normal science is not to find anything new. And in fact, if it's working perfectly, it won't find anything new. The goal is to make the box you're working in stronger and clearer, not to think outside of it.
So, if it's not about discovery, what is it? Kuhn calls it puzzle solving. And the metaphor is perfect. Think about a jigsaw puzzle. You know for a fact that a solution exists. You have all the pieces, and you have the rules for how they fit. The challenge, and all the fun, is in meticulously figuring out how it all goes together.
Now, according to Kuhn, these scientific puzzles tend to fall into three main buckets. First, you have the job of just determining significant facts with more and more precision. Second, there's the puzzle of matching those facts to what the theory says should happen. And finally, there's the work of just articulating the theory itself, clearing up any fuzzy spots.
Let's dig into that first type of puzzle, because this is where a ton of the work happens. This is the real nitty-gritty stuff. We're talking about things like meticulously charting the position of stars, calculating the exact compressibility of some material, or measuring electrical conductivity down to the 5th decimal place. This stuff requires incredible ingenuity and incredibly precise work.
A perfect example of this is the legendary astronomer Tycho Brahe. He didn't become famous for some crazy new theory about the universe. No, he cemented his place in history by building instruments that allowed for unbelievably precise measurements of the stars and planets that everybody already knew were there. That, right there, is the very definition of normal science.
And those other types of puzzles? Well, they build right on top of this. Scientists take that super precise data and then work on the puzzle of matching it to the paradigm's predictions. And at the same time, they're working to make the paradigm itself even stronger and more consistent. It's all about reinforcing the structure that's already in place.
Okay, but wait a minute. You have to be wondering, if normal science is this rigid, if it's so focused on confirming what we already think we know, and if it's actively trying to avoid new discoveries, then how in the world is it so powerful? How can something so restrictive be the very engine of scientific progress?
And the answer is surprisingly simple, but also really profound. Its immense power comes from its intense, relentless focus.
Just think about it for a second. By getting this huge community of brilliant people to agree on the basic rules of the game, The paradigm lets them stop arguing about the fundamentals. Instead, they can pour all of their combined energy into exploring one tiny little slice of nature with a depth and a detail that would be absolutely unimaginable otherwise.
So here's the real kicker, the big takeaway. All that seemingly boring, incremental mopping up work, that's actually the most essential activity in science. It's what allows science to build its incredibly detailed, robust, and reliable understanding of the world. It is the very foundation that everything else is built on.
But that leaves us with one final, fascinating twist. If normal science is so good at its job, if it's designed to solve puzzles within the box and resist any fundamental change, then how on earth does science ever break out of that box? How do those eureka moments, those massive scientific revolutions, ever actually happen? Well, that is the next, and maybe most exciting, piece of the puzzle.